Welcome to the Saturday Salon. Today is pretty special because we are going to put a theme on this show that is catching, I guess, the attention of most of the world. Not only because it's that country or that location, but because it's actually putting a lot of thought, thinking into what could happen elsewhere in the world. So I want to say a big thank you to Greenland and especially to one of the most vocal voices from Greenland, Julia Rademacher. Good to have you here today, and thank you for tuning in live from Copenhagen, I think.
Yeah, I'm close to Copenhagen in Denmark. It's a small country in the world. Greenland is so much bigger, like 50 times bigger geographically, but citizens, only 56,000 people live in Greenland. And we're actually 17,000 Greenlanders here in Denmark. And I'm representing these Greenlanders in Denmark, and we are fighting to get our voices heard and also our rights here in Denmark, but also globally now because we've been threatened by the most powerful nation in the world.
How do you feel about when you say threatened? I guess most of the listeners, including the YDL community, have heard what have happened, right? I mean, Trump has been very vocal in his last presidency, especially in this one. And now you have an embassy and representation of US in Greenland also. But what is being threatened and what is happening? Because we would like to understand it from your perspective, and we need the facts on the table, no more speculation. What is happening? Because there's been awfully quiet around Greenland the last few weeks, months. So we thought maybe it's all good. Greenland is safe and happy can lay back and be happy because it doesn't look like there's any much going on. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying that this is not at all over for Greenland.
Unfortunately not, because there's still a proposal in the US Congress about annexing Greenland. And as long as it's there, we are threatened by the United States. And therefore, it's a very difficult and very, very serious situation. You know, it's been not just an attack on Greenland, but it feels like an attack on our identity and culture as Greenlanders. So we have definitely felt like the front of democracy, the fight for democracy in the world. It's been feeling like that. It's been a very hard time being a Greenlander this year. But at the same time, we've never had a closer relation in Greenland and also towards Denmark and Europe. So at the same time, we feel a lot of community and a lot of love for each other. But it's a very serious situation, definitely. We have felt threatened and we are still aware all the time because we don't know, where are we now?
So, where are we now? I think that's an excellent question. Where do you think Greenland are now, and what can the world do to help Greenland? And what would the Greenlanders what would they like? Because there are mixed signals out of US what the Greenlanders actually want themselves. We hear that Greenland is actually considering becoming part of the United States of America and that they will get a big portion of cash and it will make each Greenlander relatively wealthy. On the other hand, when you are in Europe, you hear that Greenland is not at all interested in that strategy and that they are opposing and they don't want to have anything to do with with US. They want to stay part of Denmark. And then there's this mixed signals that Greenland indeed wants to have full self-regulation and not being dependent on Denmark very soon. So they are working towards that. So what can we actually expect? I mean, you have a very special position because you're representing Greenland in so many ways, and you are one of the biggest activists and in Greenland, not only in Denmark but also in Greenland when you're there. So what can we actually rely on? What is the truth? And is there one truth or is it many different variations of the truth here?
Well, first of all, there's facts. We are, as I said, 6,000 people in Greenland, 1,000 in Denmark. And it's very important for us to also say that, yes, we have a self-rule government in Greenland. And At the same time, we're also part of Denmark, the Kingdom of Denmark, because some areas, some departments are under the self-rule government, but still, for example, foreign affairs and defense is still under the Danish authority. Therefore, we have a mix and also a very close cooperation between Danish authorities and Greenland. Greenland is a former colony of Denmark, and we want to take home more areas. The last one that we took home to Greenland was time, so we could decide what time zone we were in. But still, we have so many complex, political decisions to make before we can be completely independent. It's a big wish for many Greenlanders to get independent, and many people, both in Greenland and also in Denmark, supports that this is the right for self-determination, and that's why you saw on the 17th January this year the big protests saying "Galaslit nunat, Galaslit bigat," and I also have the T-shirts here. You can see it, yes.
I love it.
And you saw so many Greenlandic flags. Afalassabut, that means our flag in Greenlandic. It was completely sold out in Denmark. Everyone was in the streets, like 100,000 people was in the streets that day, and it was just amazing to experience. That's one thing. But the message was very clear that Galaslit nunat, Galaslit bigat means it's for Greenlanders to decide about Greenland. And therefore, this is not only a fight for Greenland, it's also been a fight for democracy in the world, because if some country could just take over Greenland, who would be next, you know? And that's why it was said that then everything would just stop. You know, the world order as we know it, it would just collapse in many ways. So definitely Greenland has been the very front in the fight for democracy in the world. And that's also why it's been important for us as Greenlanders. But at the same time, it's also been very important for the world. And we also experience that support, luckily.
Well, Julia, thank you so much for clarifying that. So you would say Greenland is not for sale. No one is interested in making a deal with US. Is that how we should understand it?
Yes, people in Greenland would make some deals with the US, like into tourism or maybe some mineral resources, negotiation about trade. But Greenland is owned by Greenlanders. You can't just take over someone else's country from one day to another. It would just be wrong. Also, because all the principles we've been fighting for in the world as we know it. And I don't have to quote Kennedy or anyone else, because all the quotes and all the literature and all the history would actually be American. So the human rights with Martin Luther King, that was fighting for human rights, you know, it would just collapse. At the same time right now, that's what we are fighting for in Greenland. So we are fighting a fight that many Americans, they have been fighting for so many years ago. And I think it's important for us to stand up for these rights, for the human rights, also for the right to self-determination, women's rights, and indigenous people's rights as well. We are Inuit people in Greenland, so it's very important for us also to respect each other. And the thing is that what is broken now, it is the trust. We have been very, very close and seen ourselves as very close with the United States. But what happened this January was so terrifying for many Greenlanders that there's a lack of trust now. At the same time, many Greenlanders feel more trust towards Europe and towards Denmark because they showed up and they protected Greenland in this very difficult time. So I will say that what's been broken is some trust. We still respect each other, and I think it's important for us to repair the relationship. And at the same time, also maybe to rebuild some. But right now, it's first of all important for Greenland to be sure that we can rely on the US as an ally and not as a threat, definitely.
And that's a hard one, right, Julia, to be honest? it's like going back to an abusive boyfriend, right? You're not sure if that person has improved or learned the lesson or have benefited from the therapy. One thing that I think is interesting is that, and I really want also to make sure that we get into your personal story, because I think a lot of people know who you are, but there's also a lot of people who do not know who you are, and we need to, of course, make time for that. But you did say that since New Year, there has been is it fair to say that Greenland and Denmark now have a stronger relationship that maybe they've ever had in recent times?
Yeah, my story is very short that my father is a Greenlander and my mother is a Dane. So
Mm.
therefore I'm both. I also have a great grandmother from Germany, and that's where my name comes from, Rademacher. And they also had conflicts just in the First and Second World War.
Yeah.
So yes, I believe we as human beings, we are some weird ones. We are so weird. Sometimes we just get crazy. Sometimes we have conflicts. Sometimes we go to war. But at the same time, I believe we need to find the best sides in ourselves and to hope for a better future in many ways. Because we were so frightened as Greenlanders this year. And it's so very important for us to not let the fear take over, but to choose love and to choose the hope for the future and not to look backwards, definitely.
Mm.
But yeah, it was a wake-up call for us in Greenland and also in Denmark. And the relationship between Greenland and Denmark is definitely improving. For so many years, we have felt not, accepted as Greenlanders, also here in Denmark. We haven't been acknowledged as an indigenous people or as a nationality, also in Denmark. But also in Greenland, it's been hard because we have so many, we have a history like many other colonies have had with their um, colonizer, and it's the same between the Greenlandic Danish relationship.
Mm.
Therefore, it's been so very important for the Danish Prime Minister to say sorry to
Yeah.
Greenland and to Greenlanders for all the dark sides,
Mm.
all the dark chapters in the history. And therefore, also many Greenlanders, they know that many Danes, they feel better than the Greenlanders and have done for many years, but that just switched around this year. For the first time as Greenlanders, we feel like one of my members said, I just met this Danish woman in the streets in a city called Esbjerg in Denmark. And then the Danish woman told me, I'm so sorry. I didn't know all we've done to you. I'm so sorry about it. And I really feel bad about it. And I was like, wow, that's just two
Jeez.
people just meeting up in the streets. But she was so sorry because she could see she's from Greenland. And I was moved by it. And I still am when I'm saying it out loud, because it was like, wow, if we can do that, we can also move on. But it means a lot when you get sorry. Like, I'm sorry, it has a big power because, you show people where the limits are. And I would say, yes, the US could also say sorry now. That
Yeah.
would be very good for us, definitely.
Mm.
Denmark did, but it's still the Greenlanders' right to, decide for themselves, and also about self-determination in Greenland, or the question about independence. Would Greenland just uh, get it tomorrow? Maybe not, but someday in the future, definitely. We need to have that hope and that dream as Greenlanders, and also we have showed the world that we are able to fight for our country this year.
I like that the small country, the big small country is fighting for itself, and really putting a fork in the road, saying we will not accept this. So, Support Greenland. Why was Support Greenland created? And tell us a little bit more about the organization and the impact that you have had, and what the future looks like for Support Greenland, and how people maybe can, because let's be honest, Julia, a lot of people around the world are supporting you guys, right? I mean, let's be honest, it's probably most people, right? So it's a very small minority that does think that a president should just be able to go and grab some land if he likes a feeling for it, or even buy a country in 2026 is just so outrageous, right? Even though that has happened for hundreds of years that we
Yeah.
bought land and
Yep.
took land and whatnot, but it's outrageous now nowadays, I guess. But yeah,
I want to tell more about Support Greenland, but I also want to say that in January, we felt threatened by military and
yeah,
by
yeah,
force.
sure.
And just after January, it was more like get these very weird X tweets and the Truth Social posts from the American president and the very special envoy, Jeff Landry, just at the National Day last week on the 21st of June. It was like, yeah, and Jeff Landry, he also made a post. Yeah, Greenland could be the next
My
member of the
God.
United States of America.
You,
And yeah, today I can just smile about it. But sometimes it feels like we are threatened again because we were just threatened recently by military, and it's the narrative campaign from the US towards Greenland. It's been terrifying. I said out loud in Danish media and Greenlandic, and I will also say it out loud here, it felt like psychological warfare.
of course.
Like they are trying to split us. They are trying also to interview people that already lost, for example, their ability to get children because of spiral cases in Denmark. It's been very bad for so many women. And also these dark chapters of the colonial history, they are now used by the MAGA people and the MAGA campaign to split Danish and Greenlandic people, and to make them, argue against each other again. I think it's just wrong to use these methods. It's not human.
Mm.
In many ways, definitely is human, but it's a bad way to be human.
Yeah.
And we are not animals. We are better than that. We can do better than that. And I think it's very important that we tell ourselves not to just use all the anger and that the anger and let the fear control us, but that we can lift us up. Think about how the world will be for our kids. How will the future be for all my cousins in Greenland and also here in Denmark? How can we do better instead of just using all the anger and all the fear to make conflicts? I don't think anyone would find solutions in that situation, but very few very powerful men would definitely gain some land or some power about it. So it's so very important for us to show that we can stand together. And that we showed with the protests in January, that the people still has power. So I think I'm not a typical activist or protester type. So I was like, it took a long time before I decided to go into it. But I was like, we need to show the world that the people still has power and that we want the power for the many and not for the few. That's a big decision for the world now. So this was not only a fight for Greenland, this was also to warn the world to, I said, wake up, wake up. You need to wake up because this is not only about Greenland, it's also about human rights, it's about the world order as we know it, and it's about the principles and it's about democracy. So this is definitely a fight for democracy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think, Julia, that many people are that. I think a lot of people do not know that democracy is actually under a lot of threat around the world, right?
Yeah, we are probably taking it for granted.
Yes, I think so. But that's
So
not.
it's important that we invest in democracy, that we I've been a teacher in high schools in Greenland and police school, and also telling about principles of power, the rule of law, democracy, how it works, what's the opposite of democracy. And I think in so many ways, for many years, we've taken it for granted. It's very important that we do it once again. How do we disagree? but still respect each other? How can we include more people in decision-making processes? How can we make sure checks and balances is controlling government so it just doesn't, only decide for itself, but also for the people? So I think it's very important that we wake up now and that we invest in democracy and also make it more resilient. And how do we do that? We do that by talking about it as we do now, but also by talking with young people, with children about it. And we can especially see that social media trends and also the more polarized way you debate on social media is definitely threatening the conversation, the democratic conversation. So I think it's very important that we talk about it and that we also make more meetings with children, with young people, but also middle-aged and older people. So we feel the community that we are also part of.
Julie, you said so many things here that we can unpack. One, if you have not been to Greenland, which I have been very lucky to have been, if you don't know Greenland very well or the people, demonstrating seems like, well, we do that all the time in US, we have demonstrations all the time. If you go to China, there's demonstrations a lot, different kind of demonstrations, but nevertheless, if you go to France, they have demonstrations and strikes and whatnot every other week, I guess. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that lots of societies demonstrate and vocally disagree with its government or other nations for that matter. But that's not at all what's normal in Greenland. That's why it was such a big deal that the Greenlanders turned up in so large numbers, correct?
Yeah, it's like the damn thing melted. I think Richard Spencer said in the U.S. Navy strategy in 2008, and he's right. The Arctic melted, so now we need to focus on the Arctic. And how have we done that? Well, we haven't done that in Europe or in the United States, not enough. So now we definitely have to focus more on the Arctic and also about the Greenlandic people. It's like we have just been so few people. It's an island society. You just know your neighbor and you go downtown and you know everyone. And, you can see who's the new ones. And so it's small societies. It's very different from what we know in the bigger cities in the US, Europe, or Asia. So it's definitely been overwhelming that the whole world just, tried to, found out where's Greenland. So it's like, are you from Greenland? Yeah, where is that? It was like before, and now it's like, yeah, we know where Greenland is. How are you? Are you guys good? Or so it's crazy that we are discovered by the world once again in many ways, and we're so few people, and it's been overwhelming. And we can see it also the tourism numbers. So many people go to Greenland. So if you haven't been, you should definitely go. But please be aware that the flight tickets and hotels can be sold out because it's a very popular destination now. And of course, I also think it's the most beautiful place in the world.
It really is. It's very touching and very moving to be there. Would you be okay with us moving into some of the challenges that Greenland are facing? I mean,
Yes.
now we're joking about tourism, but there's a slight concern from my end, actually, that you have maybe too many tourists now and you can't find enough people to work at the restaurants and hotels and whatnot. And it's also a very important place in the Arctic and also, of course, for protection and military in Europe. And it is an important location for US also, whether we like it or not. So I'm just thinking, and then, like any other country, Denmark itself included, we have social problems, right? We have issues. I don't know any nation who don't. So let me be clear. But it's sometimes one of the things that often is the main thing people talk about Greenland, and that is they cannot afford themselves. Hence, Denmark needs to pay. I'm just quoting what people are saying. They're so small. It's ridiculous. They can't defend themselves, and they only have the serious patrol, a few people on a sled, and a few dogs. And also, they have huge social issues with alcoholism and whatnot. These have been some of the stories that have been circulated in the US, at least from what I can tell. But now I guess we have focused. That might be still issues, but there are other stories from Greenland too, right? So what is it that a regular person in the streets of Austin or San Francisco or Miami or whatever does not know about Greenland?
That's except from the fact that it's the most beautiful place in the world, and we have the coolest women in the world. Also men, definitely. Yes, well, the thing is that we have many social problems. We have a lot of traumatized people in Greenland. It's been rough being under such huge changes for decades now. First, because of colonization, and also because of the changing environment. In 1979, we got the home rule government in Greenland, and in 2009, we got the self rule government in Greenland. So many of the political areas are now taken home, like education, social affairs, science, and also, yeah, all different welfare, like health. And especially, it's been a huge discussion about the healthcare system, also because of the Truth Social post about a hospital ship. But they just tried, the MAGA movement just tried to use the post on Truth Social and the problem to create a conflict between Denmark and Greenland. But the problem is still there. So I just said when Jeff Landry arrived with the doctor from the US that maybe he should just apply for a job, because if he really wants to help people in Greenland, maybe he should just stay actually being a doctor and trying to help the people there. So I was like, yeah, we definitely have some problems. And also because in Greenland, we always look towards Denmark and the Nordic countries. In Denmark and Nordic countries, you have a very, very high level of welfare. So I think it's probably one of the best welfare systems in the world. And that's what we are also aiming for in Greenland. So we compare ourselves with the Nordic countries, and not with the healthcare system in the US or the healthcare system in Germany, where you need to pay to go to the doctor. You don't do that in Greenland. And it is, in many ways, a very good system. Also, education, for example, you don't pay to get educated in Greenland. We pay by taxes. It's a very socialist country in many ways. So we are used to paying high taxes, high amount of taxes, but also to get the support and the welfare systems for when our kids go to school, and also if our elders are going to be taken care of, or if you're going to the hospital. So I think it's a huge different system in Greenland than many other places where you have had more liberal societies and economies. We haven't had that in Greenland the same way. And we are not used to trade in the same way. We are just learning how to trade, and we are learning to build up industry and businesses. So that you can definitely invest in if you would like to. That would be a very good way to support Greenland, definitely.
You know, Julia, I like that a lot. It made me actually think about no, not few years ago, many years ago. I would like to think it was 2014 or something. I was in Burma or Myanmar, if you like. And at that time, you know, there was not no protection, in place when you did visit, you know, big major tourist attractions and so forth, because they had really just opened up almost, right? And you could tell that all the nasty business people were there to really misuse the naivety and the inexperiences from the local people in Burma, right? And to some extent, you know, that was also the case many years ago in China, actually. So if you go through history, you would see that being trained in doing international business is indeed a skill. So I think you are absolutely right that this is also a moment in history where people can do good by getting Greenland. I don't like the word up to speed, because you guys are definitely up to speed, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just a different order globally. So I guess there is some skill exchange that could be great to have. But what is the future vision for Greenland and democracy and international cooperation? I mean, what is the future for Greenland? It's not fishing. necessarily, right? Only it's not
It's
tourism.
also fishery. It's
Okay,
also
okay,
fishery.
fill me in.
Well, we still have a lot of fish in Greenland, but not enough for all of you. But actually, Denmark is the biggest exporter of halibut and shrimps. And it's not because of the Danish Ocean, it's because of the Greenlandic one. Yes. So you have probably tasted some of our fish and shrimps from Greenland. It's just amazing. But it's also being threatened by climate change and also, of course, by fishery. So it's important to take care of the nature because many other places in the world, there are no more fish. In Greenland, we have them, but it's because they haven't been discovered yet. And also because the ice is making it very difficult to just sail around Greenland. We have the ice cap inside of Greenland, but then we also have the ice from the North Pole that's melting now. But every summer it also cracks. It 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 makes a lot of landscape in the sea that creates difficulties sailing with yeah with the boats and ships, and therefore it's dangerous waters. So it's definitely dangerous to fish in Greenland, but that's also in some way protecting nature. Because then we can't just take it all out. So I would say some fishery. Then we have a lot of opportunities towards tourism, and the same with the mineral resources and other businesses, definitely.
Okay. So climate change, clearly bad. How is climate change going to impact, let's say, Greenland the next 5 years when it comes to the mineral business, as an example? And tourism, is it bad for tourism that climate is changing, or is it actually going to help with tourism because it's easier maybe to get around? And I don't know. I really don't know. How much do we know?
I believe, well, the Arctic and also Greenland is melting 4 times faster now, and the ice is just, you can actually see the glaciers disappear now from one decade to another. And it's melting very fast. And I think in many ways it creates opportunities. And because Greenland has been in huge changes for so many years, I think we will just adapt. We will adapt. We will find our way through. For the first time this year, we couldn't go skiing in Nuuk. The lift was closed, and I was like, wow, that's just crazy. We couldn't go up to the mountain skiing. It's the first time I've experienced that. So, you can live without skiing. You can move around, but at the same time, you can do more. The ocean is opening more. It's getting warmer, so you can walk in the mountains more than you could before. And therefore, you could also get another kind of tourism. So you can have winter tourism, but at the same time, you can also have tourism during the summer. And Greenland is so huge. So you have in the south, it's warm in the summer. It's so green. That's probably why it's called Greenland. And in the north, it's so very cold, and it's like white and brown most of the year. So the climate is so different inside of Greenland. And so it depends on where, I would say, because Greenland's it's so diverse in many ways, both the climate but also the cultures. We actually have 3 different languages in Greenland. That's only in Greenland. So it's because we haven't been connected before 150 years ago. It's another example of how crazy our development has been the last couple of decades. Definitely, we will also adapt into the climate change, but it creates a lot of opportunities in tourism, and definitely also in mineral resources and industry. It's going to be interesting. The first investments and mines are opening up this decade, and it's going to be very interesting what's under the ice when we also enter a new decade.
In many ways, because your climate is changing literally in front of your eyes, Julia, it's fair to say that people from Greenland is very resilient, right? every morning you wake up, there's a new view almost because now there's an iceberg that wasn't there yesterday or there used to be and now there's not. So I'm sure that you have some incredible resilience and you're just used to adapting, I guess. So would you say that, and again, climate change is bad. There's no question about it. But the way you spoke about the future of Greenland in that regard was also with hope and optimism. Would you say that you are hopeful and optimistic on behalf of Greenland? And despite everything that's going on, you seem extremely, of course, alert on it, and you fight against it, meaning no country should take over Greenland against its own will. But you also seem optimistic and hopeful. Is that how I should read the room?
I'm a very optimistic person. I try to be. I hope for the best always. Also because I'm a mother. I think everything just changed for me when I became a mother. This is not just about me. It's about the future of my kids and our family. And it was so terrifying. We had this crazy threat or about invading Greenland, and the premier of Greenland, he said and announced that we had to take care of ourselves and prepare to stay at home for at least 5 days. We are used to snowstorms. We are used to the most extreme and harsh climate and weather. My kids just went to school despite the fact that there was a snowstorm, and they got home themselves when the bus could drive. But this was just so crazy.
Different.
Yeah, so different. So we are so strong as a people, but at the same time, we also very vulnerable. And I think many of us are also in Europe and in the US. We don't prepare for military invasions like from one day to another. We had to do that in Greenland. So it was so crazy. And the situation has been very difficult for many people. But at the same time, I also experienced this pride and this absolutely, yeah, what you say, this wish to just show the world that this is ours and we are going to work our asses off for it. And we are definitely going to show that we want to develop and that we also want to take care of each other as a people. So it raises a lot of old questions about what's a people and who owns the land and who has the right. Well, we are a Greenlandic people, and also we have the right to Greenland. At the same time, we also need to develop our country. We need investments. We need to develop industries, businesses, and we also need to do it in a tempo where we can have the welfare, because we compare ourselves to the Nordic countries. We definitely want the welfare. But we also want to open up and to get more cooperations going on, and it's so positive that the France opens up consulate this year, and the same Norway has also um, send out a message. They want to open a consulate. So I think the world is going to Greenland now in many ways, definitely. And I think it's important that we do that. But we're only 56,000 people. So it's very important that it's democratically controlled by government, but also at the same time, the development can happen in a tempo where all the people can develop. More of my cousins, more of my families, and more of from our people need educations, competences to be the ones who get the ownership, to be the ones who's in charge, so we can decide for ourselves in our country. And I think many people in Greenland do that right now. And we are a very proud people. But it's also going to be very interesting what's going to happen the next decade and two in Greenland, definitely. Because we can't go back. We can't We can't not develop, so we have to do something. And as I said before, we are a very socialistic country. So one of the things we need is more business. We need to be more liberal country and also to create more businesses.
Young people, young Greenlanders, how can we engage them in the future of Greenland, and what is being done right now to make sure that their voices are heard? I would have loved to be a fly on the wall when they were offered. How big was the check that Trump offered each person from Greenland if they said yes to be bought by Greenland? I don't remember the exact number, but there must have been a small moment where some young Greenlanders were thinking, for that I could get 2 boats and a house, and then I'm settled for life. Not quite though, but how do we make sure that I mean, I don't think it's a problem, Julia, but I have to ask, your culture is so strong and you're so proud and you're so entangled and related to each other that it's hard to believe that you could actually kind of build a divide. But you also did mention in the very beginning of this conversation that there has been fractions, right? But now, maybe now you're more united. But I'm really curious about the young people, especially the young people. What are they saying is needed for the future of Greenland? I mean, your children included.
Yeah. Well, definitely more investments and more opportunities. They want to decide for themselves and they want to be ahead of it. So it's strong in young people, at the same time, very vulnerable. We have a lot of traumatized people are very traumatized in Greenland and it's been very stressful. So it's very important that we can use the focus that's been on Greenland to create new solutions for Greenlanders. And now I would like to talk about the Support Greenland, as you mentioned before, because Support Greenland, I have this Galashlid Big Ad. The future of Greenland belongs to Greenland, but we also have the future Greenland. And it's very important for us to say that the future of Greenland belongs to Greenlanders and also to the young people. And we would like to make more democratic resilience, to inform more about democracy all over Greenland, and also to use the focus on Greenland now to make the world wake up and to see that this is not only a problem in Greenland. Actually, the biggest problem in many ways is in the US. The Americans need to wake up. They need to find out that this is not just a fight for Greenland. This is also a fight for democracy. And also for them in the US to talk about democracy in the schools and also in kindergarten from small kids till you're growing up. Why it's important that we go vote when there's an election, why it's important that we have a voice, why it is important that we don't use violence or that we don't press the young people too much or don't listen to them. It's important for us to listen to the young people, but also the old people. That's what democracy is all about. It's about all of us. So I think it's very important that we definitely invest in democracy. Economically, we need support, definitely. But also we need to focus on how we can make democracies all around the world more robust. We want to make a democracy summit in Nuuk in Greenland, and before the summit we want young people to be heard. Therefore, we are making a project now on how to speak up, how to use our voices. We teach the young people, they learn how to do it. And then we have a lot of debates on the future of Greenland. And that's also a part of Support Greenland. So I think it's important that we say this out loud, not only for Greenland, but for the whole world, that we need more of this, more dialogues, more debates, not just on social media, but in real life. And I think it's important that we invest ourselves in it, not just economically, but also as parents, as grandparents, as teachers, that we take the responsibility for the next generations.
So, Julia, what you're saying is that helping Greenlanders to find their voice, to stand up, speak out, communication, speaking skills, debate skills, all of that that the Americans are so good at.
Yeah, but there's one thing the Americans, they haven't discovered because they have the president. He just said, well, if you don't do as I say, then I'll just make taxes. Then you'll just pay more And I was like, that's the opposite of the liberal democracies. So you need to wake up in America, in the United States of America, because hello, that's not a liberal democracy anymore. Almost not. So you seriously need to fight for the liberal democracy in the US. And if you need help from Greenland or Denmark, you just call us. Then we'll come and help you.
Because
Definitely.
we are still friends with US. I mean, we don't mind helping. Julia, what have I not asked you about that is very important for you to get through to the listeners of the Young Global Leaders community, but also everyone else that is tuning in, since the salon now is open to the wider public? What have I not asked you that you find is very necessary to get through, especially now where it's June, July, right? I mean, it's summer. It's still 26. It's been really a traumatizing half year, but where you stand right now and what you see, what has happened and what could happen, what do you think is really important to get as a message through?
I think it's very important for me to say that the world needs to wake up, because we have been fighting for democracy in Greenland, and we've been the front of the fight for democracy in the world. We have read all the literature from Americans. I sit here with an Albright and Kissinger. But hello, this is what we are actually fighting for. And in some points, we are actually fighting against some Americans at the moment, because they don't seem that they want democracy. For us, Galaslit Nunat, Galaslit Bigat means we have the right for self-determination in in Greenland as Greenlanders. And therefore, it's also very important for the world to wake up and to support us, because this is not only about Greenland, this is also about you. If you want your kids to grow up in a liberal democracy in the future, you need to wake up now. You need to make more democratic resilience. You need to call the teacher and put democracy and dialogues on the agenda. If you're a businessman or woman, you need to invest in democracy as well, because you can't just take it for granted that it will just continue. Now is the time where we need to invest in democracy in Greenland, of course, but also in the world. And if you are a voice, or if you are a great actor towards a democratic dialogue, you can also write to us, and we would like for you to join our Democracy Summit in Nuuk. It's very important for us to create a global movement, not for our own sake, but for yours as well. So I would say that this is not only about Greenland. This is definitely also globally important. And I think that it's not weapons that's going to solve it all for us. I think in so many ways it's worse. It's how we talk about each other, and it's how we agree to disagree, but we don't use the weapons. We protect each other, we respect each other, and we also want to do that in the future. So I think for many reasons, I would say, yes, you can support Greenland. SupportGreenland.org is an organization. You can buy our very, very cool t-shirts. Galaslit Nuna, Galaslit Bigat. You can also sign if you're in an organization with many members or you have many followers. Please share our site and please get people to sign so we can show that we are more than 1 million people globally that supports Greenland, and that the power of the people is the strongest. And it's going to be that way because we need the power for the many and not only for the few for the future. Then we, of course, need funding for our projects, for the Young Voices, for the Democracy Summer. We also make a support concert in Nuuk. And this we would also like funding for. And if you just know some of the most famous singer and songwriters or bands in the world, please let us know and please send them to Nuuk so we can show Nuuk and Greenland that we all support Greenland, and not only for Greenland's sake, but also for the fight for democracy in the world. That would mean a lot.
Julia, I think you came up with very specific and very realistic ways of supporting. You can do it remotely. You can do it with one, share. But I mean, social media, and you can donate. You can actually also fly to Greenland yourself, and actually train and help and help build this movement with very practical transfer of skills. That being international business skills, or even but speaking skills, communication skills, whatever, democracy training and so forth. So I think you came up with a lot of very practical ways to make a difference depending on your time and budget and your temperament, whatever it feels right for you. There's a way to support Greenland, because as you say, this is not about Greenland. This is actually about the future of democracy. That's really what it is, right? That's what it is at its core.
Yes, and we are going to stand together in Greenland, and we are going to go through this too. We have survived in the most extreme climate and weather conditions for so many centuries, and we're going through this too. And it's not just an island. It's not just land for us. For us, it's our existence. It's our identity and our culture, and it needs to be respected, as well as we also respect your culture and identities. And I think we want a world where our kids can grow up and also feel respected, where they can travel and be safe, where they can learn other languages and feel curious and not frightened. So I think this is very much also a question about trust, reliability, and respect. And I think it's important that we remember that in our everyday decisions. Then I would say that I'm so glad that you gave me the opportunity to talk here today. Thank you for listening to a Greenlander, and at the same time also that you have the interest in this. This is about geopolitical and world politics, definitely. This is about power, but mighty doesn't make right. And it didn't in Nuuk when the people of Greenland just turned their back when the U.S. consulate opened. It's not to show disrespect against the Americans, but it's because we want respect as Greenlanders. And we are a very strong people, at the same time very vulnerable. We need your help and we need your support. And we are going to fight for our country, but also for our identity and culture. So please be aware that we would like to be with you in the better future. And we believe that we do that right now by supporting Greenland, supportgreenland.org. You can check it out. And thank you very much, Soulaima, for all your questions as well.
Well, thank you, Julia. I could come with many more because there's so many things we could dive into, but I think we got a beautiful overview. I would say a beautiful, status of the current situation. But let's be honest, the situation can very well change a lot within the next 3 months. We really do not know. It's happening as we speak. So it's really too soon to relax and just think that this has been fixed and this is all safe and well. And also there is a long tail now of trauma, re-traumatizing of a large amount of the 56,000 people in Greenland, right? I mean, this has, and I'm sure a lot of people know this, but there's been a huge mental impact on locals. Imagine waking up and your country is being purchased by US or grabbed actually by military force. So of course it's insane, and there's not that many countries who will ever be in that situation or have never thought about they could be in that situation. And that was your reality. It is your reality. So thank you for your service. And Julie, we could also talk long about how you protect your mental hygiene by being both in Greenland and Denmark and communicating and taking this huge responsibility as you have done to communicate the situation on behalf of Greenland. But that will have to be for another talk where we focus on you as a change maker and activist, because that's not easy either. So I want to thank you for what you're doing, and by broadcasting and showing real time that you always have leverage. Even if you're a small country with very few people, you always have leverage, and there's always something that can be done. And by having an honest conversation about strengths and also weaknesses or vulnerabilities where you're vulnerable creates also stronger ties, maybe even to those who can come and help. We just have to make sure that those that help you have good intentions. It's very, very important. It's one of the few truly authentic places left on Earth, as we know. So we have to be very, very sure that whoever starts engaging with Greenland, that they have good intentions. So thank you for safeguarding that, Julia, and thank you for showing us that the future is to be united, and also that you are handling out a hand today and saying, actually, US, we still want to work with you guys and we want to figure this out, apologize, let's move on, and let's take it from there. I think that's beautiful said. So thank you, Julia, again, and have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for tuning in today.
Yeah, thank you. And as we say in Greenlandic, thank you.